Why does Iceland have so many volcanoes? It's like nature's own fireworks show, but with a lot more science behind it. Iceland is sitting on a giant crack. Imagine Iceland like a house built right on top of a huge crack in the earth. This crack is the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, where two big pieces of the Earth's crust, the North American and Eurasian plates, are slowly moving apart. So, imagine you've got a big chocolate bar, right? Now, think of breaking that bar along one of those neat lines. That's kind of like what's happening in Iceland. The island is sitting right on top of this huge crack in the Earth, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, which is where two of Earth's big plates, the North American and Eurasian plates, are slowly moving apart. It's like these two plates are having a slow-motion breakup, inching away from each other. And as they move, they create space in between. Now, here's where it gets spicy. Deep down in the Earth, there's this super hot, molten rock called magma, and it sees this new space and thinks, hey, party time. So, it starts rising up to fill in the gap. As this magma reaches the surface and cools down, it forms new land. That's actually how Iceland is growing. This process is happening under the ocean all along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, but in Iceland, it's like we've got a front-row seat to this incredible geological process. That's why you see so many volcanoes and such unique landscapes in Iceland. So, when you're looking at those stunning Icelandic volcanoes, you're actually seeing Earth's way of stretching and growing. Hot spot underneath. Beneath Iceland, there's this super hot spot in the Earth, kind of like a giant underground blowtorch. This blowtorch, or mantle plume, sends up a lot of heat and magma, adding more fuel to Iceland's volcanic fire. Think of the Earth like a giant, super thick layer cake. Now, most of the time, the heat and all the action are deep down in the lower layers of the cake, far from the surface. But in some special spots, like under Iceland, there's a kind of thermal chimney that goes all the way from the really hot part at the bottom. We're talking about the Earth's mantle, right up towards the top. This chimney, or what geologists call a mantle plume, is like a superheated express elevator bringing heat and molten rock, magma, from deep inside the Earth up towards the surface. In Iceland's case, this hot spot adds extra heat and magma to the mix, making the area especially active in terms of volcanic activity. So, when you think about Iceland and its numerous volcanoes, imagine there's this massive underground heater that's always on, keeping the island's volcanic activity cooking. It's a bit like having a pot on the stove with the burner turned up high. Things are bound to bubble over more often, and that's exactly what happens with Iceland's volcanoes. This hot spot isn't just a flash in the pan. It's been there for millions of years, shaping Iceland's landscape. In short, Iceland's hot spot is like nature's own geological furnace, making the land above it one of the most exciting and dynamic places on Earth. Thin crust pizza. Anyone? The Earth's crust under Iceland is thinner than in most places. Think of it like a thin crust pizza compared to a deep dish. This thin crust makes it easier for the magma to break through and say hello to the surface, resulting in more volcanoes. Imagine you're baking a pizza. Some pizzas have a thick, doughy crust, and others have a thin, crispy one. In most parts of the world, the Earth's crust is like a thick crust pizza. It's pretty thick and tough. But in Iceland, it's more like a thin crust pizza, relatively thin and a bit more fragile. This thin crust is a big deal because it makes it easier for all that magma we talked about, the hot, molten rock from deep inside the Earth, to break through to the surface. They can push through and puff up easily, right? In the same way, the magma in Iceland doesn't have to work as hard to push through the Earth's crust to create volcanoes. So, in places with a thicker crust, the magma might give up and cool down before it ever sees the light of day. But in Iceland, with its thin crust, the magma can make its grand entrance onto the surface much more easily, leading to all those spectacular volcanic eruptions that Iceland is famous for. A variety pack of volcanoes. Iceland isn't just about quantity, it's about variety too. It's got different types of volcanoes. Some are like giant cracks in the ground, fissure vents. Some look like classic mountains, stratovolcanoes, and others are big and round like shields, shield volcanoes. It's like a sampler platter of volcanic structures. So, imagine you're at a buffet, and instead of dishes, it's filled with different types of volcanoes. That's what Iceland is like, a geological buffet with an impressive variety of volcanic features. First up, you've got the fissure vents. These are like cracks in the earth where lava just oozes out in a pretty chill way, no big explosions. Then, there are the shield volcanoes. Picture a warrior's shield lying on the ground, broad, gently sloping, and pretty massive. These volcanoes are built up by layers of lava that flows out slowly and spreads far and wide. They're not the dramatic, steep-sided volcanoes you might picture. They're more like the chill, laid-back cousins in the volcano family. And of course, you've got your stratovolcanoes. These are the classic, picturesque volcanoes, steep, tall, and often with a perfect conical shape. They're built from layers of erupted material like ash and lava that pile up in dramatic eruptions. Think of a layered cake, but way more explosive. Iceland's got this great mix because of its unique setting on the mid-Atlantic ridge and over a hot spot. So, in Iceland, you're not just getting a one-size-fits-all volcano experience. You're getting a taste of almost every type of volcano there is. It's like a theme park for geology enthusiasts, showcasing the Earth's fiery creativity. Always popping off. Volcanoes in Iceland are pretty active and like to show off every few years. It's not the place for a volcano to take a long nap. Imagine volcanoes like popcorn kernels in a hot pan. Most places on Earth are like kernels that need a lot of heat to pop. And even then, they might take their sweet time. But in Iceland, it's like the heat's turned up high, and the kernels, or volcanoes, are popping way more often. This is because of all the stuff we've talked about earlier. The mid-Atlantic ridge, the hot spot, and the thin crust. Together, they make Iceland like a party zone for volcanic eruptions. It's as if the volcanoes there are saying, "Hey, it's showtime." Every few years. For scientists, it's super exciting, like having front-row tickets to your favorite band. For the rest of us, it's a reminder of how dynamic and alive our planet really is. So, in a nutshell, Iceland is pretty much a geological theme park with all its volcanic activity. It's got the cracks, the heat, the thin crust, and a whole lot of drama beneath and above the surface.